My privilege to have in the studio the vocal talent behind that particular track, Jenny Horst. Jenny, kia ora.
Hello, kia ora. Lovely to be here.
That was even more of a flashback for you.
Wasn't it?
I
mean,
imagine.
that was just a few lifetimes ago.
How long ago was that exactly?
Oh, that was the early 90s. I think that album came out in 92.
Yeah.
We signed to a US record label and released a few albums, actually, but that was the first.
Yeah. Very enthusiastic music video. I recommend people Google that as well. But hey, you're not here to talk about the good old days of hoi polloi, but the latest project that you're involved with. A fantastic musical, 341, the Climate musical. And Steve, welcome to the studio as well.
Thanks, Andrew. Great to be here.
Now, we'll start with you, perhaps, Steve, and then Jenny, back to you for your particular role. Last time we were chatting, it was auditions time. Can we get the cast together? And you've brought together a stellar cast, including Jenny, of course, and lots of rehearsals, lots of late nights and rewrites and all those sorts of things. It's just over a month until you go live with this. How are you feeling, Steve?
Yeah, pretty excited. Yeah, and just thinking back to our last interview, we've got such an awesome cast. Like, we were just overwhelmed with who we've got. For example, people who you can find on the IMDb database, and one person who has performed on Broadway and the West End. And so we've got some stunning talent.
Wow.
I don't know where they all came. Maybe it's your great Rhema listeners that pass the word around. But we're just so pleased, so excited to bring the show together.
And it is a great concept. Let's go back to the concept, because I know that this is something that you're passionate about. A musical about climate change, which perhaps challenges some people's perceptions on what it means and how relevant it is to us, and what responsibility we should take, particularly the impact that it has on our Pacific neighbours. Talk to us, I suppose, first up, Steve, about the broad concept of the musical and why it's a passion project for you.
Yeah, it probably owes a bit to my background as a pastor, to be honest, because I've always been that slightly dangerous kind of pastor that wants to talk about those things that are hard to talk about. Yeah. You know, the hot topic things. I always, right back from my 20s, I thought, well, that's what we should be talking about. Yeah. And I guess I found over the years you can raise those in a church setting, and you can find your way together with the church community. But when you do theatre, suddenly you've got the whole of the public out there that you can engage around these things, and you add music and drama to it. It's really exciting what you can do. And so it is one of those topics. It's a huge topic. It's in the news every day. Yeah. It's really hard to talk about because people often have these polarised views. But we think we can present a particular thing about it that you don't really find elsewhere. And that's the kind of seeing it through the lens of people. How is this issue affecting people? And so you don't tend to see that when you read sort of facts and figures about climate change. Yeah. But we think it's really worth people's time for a night to sit down and
let's take the statistics, which honestly causes most people's eyes to roll over and go, well, I don't really understand what that means. And let's make it a story about peoples whose lives are impacted and in some cases devastated by what is happening in the Pacific. Jenny, back to you for a moment. How did you first hear about this? What's your connection? Are you the Broadway star that's been drawn to this production?
Wish. Oh, look, my talent pales in comparison to some of those in the cast. No, I'm not, but just an absolute joy to be in this cast. And I got connected to it actually because I was attending Mount Albert Baptist at the time when Steve was pastoring there, and through one thing and another, I learned that he was doing the show, and I had parked my creativity, not necessarily intentionally, but for extraordinarily long time.
To be fair, she's very modest, Steve. She's been very busy doing a number of other very exciting and important projects, but the opportunity to sing in front of an audience, that was something that you thought was in your past, perhaps?
Yeah, it was not something I intentionally sort of removed from the list of possibilities for my life, but it was more just ages and stages and seasons and things like that. And I thought actually this would be a really incredible way to reconnect with my own creativity. And interestingly, a lot of members of the cast are in the same boat, and finding this a really joyous experience. So, and for me, the issue of climate change is one that I hadn't spent a lot of time on. I've invested my life more in social justice issues, but it was something that I thought it matters, right? It's affecting us at a human level, as Steve says. So I thought, this is something I'd like to lend my time to, and look, I've just been quite blown away by the way the storyline, the songs, the acting, everything is feeding into this incredible narrative that's both incredibly funny, believe it or not, very thought-provoking, really moving. So I just think people that come to 341 are able to go on this incredible journey with us.
Yeah.
And I think we'll be able to identify with somebody in the cast, no matter where they are around the climate change issue, they'll find somebody on stage that they're thinking, yeah, that guy's me or that girl's me.
Yeah.
And go on this journey with us in a gentle, thought-provoking way. Steve,
can you give us no spoilers? We want people to go and see the show, but a general overview. What happens with 341, and what type of story? Set the scene for us, if you like.
Yeah. So to start with, when you come into the theatre space, it's set up like a resort. So it's like you just walked onto a Pacific resort, and that all makes us all go, wow, like that's a place you want to be.
Yeah.
And so it starts there, and the story is set on an island, an unnamed island, but it's sort of modelled on the likes of the islands of Tuvalu and Kiribati, which are having the effects of climate change, extreme weather, sea level rise, and all of that affect their futures. And so it happens there, and there's a Kiwi wedding party who are coming for the time of their lives, who are going to stay at this resort. And so all they want is the 5-star experience of a holiday, and beautiful. And these island nations are beautiful. You look at them online, and it's like that. And so there's the fun resort experience. We're finding out, what let's go explore the island and all that kind of thing. Little by little, they start to find out about what's going on the island, and then there are some reveals part way through where they really start to get in tune with what the islanders have been experiencing. And it's probably not a spoiler to say a number of people have left, because a number of people have left those islands that we're talking about. Yeah. Why have they left? What does it mean if you stay? All of those questions come. And then at the end of Act 1, there's this major event that completely turns the tables. Yeah. And in Act 2, people are fighting for their lives. So it's kind of from paradise at the start to Survivor in the second half. That's sort of that's the overall sort of frame of it.
Dramatic stuff indeed, and certainly looking forward to seeing it unfold on the stage. Of course, this off the back of the Parihaka musical, which you did for a few seasons. And in some ways similar in that you have two types of cast member.
Yes.
That you have the people who are native to the island, for whom this is their home, they've lived there for generations, and then you've got the outsiders, the manahiri, if you like, who are arriving and want this experience. Is that the kind of vibe in this musical as well?
Absolutely, yes. And in this case, we looked for people who are Pacifica, who could play the named characters and the island company group that we have. So they're the workers around the resort. Yep. And so the interaction, the cast level is the same as it was with the Parihaka one, where half of us were Māori and half were Pākehā. Yeah. And the learning that goes on there, because we had people from Tuvalu and Kiribati in our cast. Not all the Pacifica folk are from those countries, but some are, and so you're meeting and you're helping tell the story of what's happening to their ancestral home. And these are our Pacific neighbours, and they're in the process of losing their home. And so that's the story that we're tapping into, finding out about. So it's kind of quite a journey for us as a cast, but that's also the journey we take people on as an audience.
I love this, the way in which you do this, because it certainly happened with the Parihaka musical as well, that Jenny, as you were saying, you're identifying with a different cast member, and as the cast member is learning the way of life of the other people in the story, that it takes us on that journey as well from both sides. It's a wonderful process, and looking forward to it unfold with 341. Jenny, I presume that you're part of the wedding party in that regard. To introduce us to your character.
I'm not actually. No? I said, look, I'm in. Cast me wherever you want. And I got given quite a fascinating character. Yeah. Very, very complex.
Okay.
She has a few traits that some might recognise as being on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
And so these, although not necessarily deemed autistic, and so she's really struggling with some of these experiences on the island as the story plays out, but has this sort of superpower around the knowledge base on what's happening with climate change.
Wow.
And tries to communicate that as best as she can to a mixed reaction from other characters in the show. But she's a little bit of an oracle in that sense.
Okay.
And so it's quite a privilege to play this role. And I get to sing, don't I, Steve? Which is really nice. At one point, it's really lovely. And but there's some amazing voices in the cast as well, singers of different ilks. And so, yeah, I get to lend my weight to the storyline, which I must say is incredibly well written. And the songs are beautifully melodic. So, when you first hear a pastor segueing into musical theatre, you think, oh, well, I hope it's good. But actually, it's incredible. This guy is an absolute genius. So he's been a professional musician in the past himself in London and other places. And I think New Zealanders they will discover through the course of hopefully this musical and others that he writes in the future that we're sitting on an incredible talent here. And I just think it just come along and enjoy the creativity and musicality of all of this, even if you're not connected into the climate change story. But look, I will add what Steve was saying about what's going on in the Pacific. We are not immune to that here in New Zealand. Yeah. It's coming to roost a bit here, and it will increasingly in the future. So it's something good to be aware of, in such a gorgeous way to be able to kind of engage with it in this context.
We'll see if we can unpack some of the mystery of your kind of larger-than-life, quirky character, not typecast at all, Jenny, just saying.
All good. It's all good with me.
Exactly. Yeah. Steve, wanting to play one of the songs from the musical, because, yes, it's I'm sure it's a beautiful set, fantastic cast and all that sort of stuff, but if it's a musical, the songs have got to hold their own, and that's on you, bro, no pressure. But we're going to play a song called Home. Tell us about this one. Introduce us. Where does this sit within the story?
Yeah, so I mentioned before that a number of people have left the island and the wedding party slowly discover this. And so when everybody is out together and they're going to actually try and clear a well, but they come across an abandoned church, and they suddenly realise this is where your whole community used to gather, isn't it? Talking to the island folk there, this must have been amazing when you gathered there. I bet it was amazing when you used to sing.
Yeah.
And so they're remembering, on one hand, the fact that everybody's left.
Yeah.
And now they're kind of stuck there, just a few on their own. And also the incredible colour and the spirituality that they shared together on the island. So they come across this abandoned church, and one of the wedding parties say, hey, would you sing us something that you used to sing in this church way back here when you were a child? And so that's what the song does. And then during the song, the lights change and there's this imaginary moment where the people from the past come back again.
Wow.
And then the lights change again before the end of the scene and they're gone. And so it sort of recreates the past in a sense. And so that's what the song called Home does.
Gosh, that is so nice, Steve. Well done. A beautiful piece of music, but also painting such an evocative picture of what home means, and particularly for people whose home is being impacted by climate change and a bunch of other pressures on their society. Wanted to pick up the spiritual aspect, because that particular song, set in an abandoned church on a Pacific island, you're an ex-pastor. There's obviously a spiritual flavour or connection in the life that you lead and what inspires you as a person. What's the spiritual component to 341?
I guess I find with Pacific culture, similar to Māori, that there's not the separation between God, people and environment that there is in Western culture. We think of it as an entirely different thing, as if we're almost not connected to it, not part of it. And it's not so with Pacific nations. So, for example, if there's a cyclone in the Pacific, you'll hear, as we have heard in the last few years, the president or the prime minister of a given country saying, please pray for us.
Yes.
It's all connected, and so the way they think about their land and their God, it all weaves together in a whole lot of ways. And so, and we're at a point, of course, where we Westerners are being challenged about this big division that we have, and we've got to start saying we can't just use our earth as a materialistic thing forever, and not have any consequence on it. And so, I guess it's one of the things that brings into light in the course of the show.
And I mean, it's a big question, really, because as you say, different people have different views on climate change and the extent to which human beings have been the causal factor in that. it's a big question to ask. As you said at the beginning, you don't mind stirring it up every now and again, and I know you've also done a podcast series on this topic as well. Is this part of the reason for the musical, to challenge people who perhaps have a certain point of view, to see the viewpoint of others, to open their eyes to different ways of looking at things?
I would say this show is for every point of view.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're on this side or that. Come in and listen to a story. And I think that, a big part of my learning on this has been getting to know people and hearing their perspective when they're from affected places. So how did I, write the Parihaka story? Well, I went to Parihaka. I sat and I tried to learn as much as I could. I welcomed people from Parihaka into the cast. And in the same way, when we're talking about these global issues, we can sit on our own and we can come up with these grand conclusions, or we can Google stuff to the nth degree, but make friends with somebody from an affected country. That's what this does. Now, it's not in your face. It's not saying you've got to believe this, but it will take you on a journey where you can make your own conclusions.
So that's the point of it. It's not environmental activist evangelism or anything. No. But it is.
That'd be awful. I don't think people would enjoy that, and we definitely need a name for that.
Yeah, totally. In terms of the name, though, because wanting to pick this up, because this is again a little bit of a mystery, and no spoilers. 341, and I got told pretty early from Steve that it's not 341, it's 341, and it has to be written and not the letters. Now, this is still a little bit of a mystery to me as well, and it's not something that I want to spoil in our conversation today, because there's a little bit of a mystery in the production as well. Now, Jenny, you're at the centre of this mystery in some ways.
I am.
Yeah.
Causing a little whirlwind, actually, in the storyline, because I turn up in this T-shirt that I got from an international conference.
Yeah.
This is I'm holding it up for you there.
Okay, hold a little higher. Look at that. There we go.
There you go.
It says 341. Now, that is the numbers and not the letters there. But this is a bit of a mystery in the plot and the dialogue of what's happening on stage as well, Steve.
Yeah, so what happens is Jenny's character comes in and she's wearing this slightly odd shirt. Well, who would wear a shirt called 3.41? What might that mean? And so the bridal party are all, what's that? And so the discussion goes on. It's about scene 3 of Act 1. Yeah. And so they're all trying to figure it out. And, of course, Jenny's character is in her own world. But in time they work it out. But it's sort of teased at the start. And that's why we don't want to tell you what it is.
No, exactly.
But it's also kind of fun to ask people, well, what do you think 341 might mean? And we've had all kinds of hilarious answers. We put the funniest ones we could think of in the show itself. But I'm sure there's plenty more out there.
Let's throw it out to the listeners, actually. And if you're listening to this on Rhema at the moment, text me, 8168 keyword Rhema, 341. What do you think that could mean? 341 8168. And Steve, you're happy to put a double pass on the line for the answer that you think is, well, not necessarily accurate, but at least the most amusing one you haven't heard before?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It can be funny or it can be serious. What's the striking answer you got to the question? Yeah,
341. What do you think it means? 8168 is the number to text. Start with the first word, Rhema. We've got a double pass to the show up for grabs in this regard. And honestly, if people are watching this online, then just leave it in the comments. No tickets for that one. But hey, let's just continue the conversation. Let's exchange some ideas online as well. 341, what do you think it means? Of course, if you want to know the answer to that question, you've got to come to the show, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There are some really intriguing storylines through the show. And I don't know how Steve does it, the interweaving of numbers of different storylines, including a romance, would you believe it?
Oh.
So there's some just gorgeous, not to do with the wedding, just some really cool stuff going on. And so you'll be kept busy, you'll be wonderfully entertained, and you'll have the intrigue of this thing to ponder. Okay. And of course, we do answer it during the show. But
yes.
There you go for that camera.
Yeah, there we go.
That camera and that camera. So it's a neat thing just to zero people's attention into what is quite an important piece of information in this subject that we're exploring together on the show.
Now, just about out of time for this hour, but encouraging people to engage with this show. Now, I don't want to freak you out, Steve, but next Friday, it will be exactly a month until the show opens on the 28th of March.
I'm aware of that.
A bit to be done between now and then. How's it all coming together?
Yeah, it's we're in the fun part, to be honest, because you start off, you learn your lines, you do all your block, you figure out where everyone's going to be on stage. Now we're doing the choreography, and it's really fun, and sharpening up the scenes. So now characters have got what they're doing. You get to fine tune, and then you start adding costumes and stage set and microphones and lighting. We're making the lighting plan, all that. So it's fun. We're buzzing. We're having a great time with it.
Now, it is opening on March the 28th to the 30th, then taking a little bit of a break also on the 4th and 5th of April. Eastgate Christian Centre in Pakuranga. Now, people might be thinking, oh, that's a month away, but actually, if they bought tickets now, that would be really helpful, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, and they'll get the night or the matinee that they want. So buy now while stocks last.
Exactly.
No, but honestly, you want to get in quick because it is going to be so much fun. It'll guarantee the night that you want. And bring a friend or two.
Yeah.
As I say, you'll have a really fun night. And did you know, research is showing that people that make time for these kinds of creative things in their life, and it might be going to an art gallery or going to a show, actually live longer.
Okay.
They live 2 or 3 years longer. So come and live a little bit longer, live a little bit in the moment, and enjoy
3.41 years on average longer, perhaps.
So it's a lot of fun. Come along.
So just finally, where do people get the tickets, Steve? How do they make this happen?
Through iTicket, and so you can find us there, 341 in iTicket, or go to our website, which is toytoycollective.com. And so that's all one word, no gaps, toytoycollective.com. And you can find out all about the show. You can also buy these T-shirts, by the way, if you're interested in that. So
do check it out either at the Toy Toy website or, of course, on the iTicket. Thank you so much for popping in, guys. Certainly looking forward to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.